Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. It's one of the best weeks on the NFL calendar. It's Dallas week for Philadelphia as the Birds get set to host the Cowboys on Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field in a pivotal game in the NFC, a pivotal game, of course, in the NFC East. And if you despise the Dallas Cowboys, I want you to do two things. I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video if you can't stand Dallas, and also type F Dallas in the chat. So the stage is set for another really great game between the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. I know that we can rip the Cowboys all we want, but this is a really good football team coming into this matchup with only 2 losses. They're duking it out with Philadelphia to try to win the NFC East. And, of course, even after getting dump trucked by the San Francisco 49ers a couple of weeks ago, they do have an opportunity to improve their standing in the NFC playoff picture. Kickoff set for the late afternoon window on Fox, 4:25 p.m. Eastern at the Link. The total over-under for this game at 46, and Philadelphia only 3-point favorites. And you look further at these betting odds. Usually when a team is at home, they automatically get those 3 points because of home field advantage. It's going to be a raucous environment in South Philadelphia. So when I look at this line, I don't love it for the Eagles because this here is a Dallas line with the Eagles only being field goal favorites. You take a peek at the NFC East standings, the Eagles, best record in the NFL, the only squad in the National Football League to have 7 wins to their name, 7-1 up to this point. The only blemish on the resume for Philadelphia, that loss to the New York Jets. Then they rebound in a really impressive way against the Miami Dolphins, holding that number 1 overall offense in check. And then last week, they come back from 14-3 against Washington on the road, and they ended up taking a 2-touchdown lead in that ball game late before Washington scored that garbage time touchdown. The Cowboys, though, couple of losses this year to Arizona, to San Francisco. More on that in a moment. They're in second place in the NFC East, followed by those aforementioned Commanders at 3-5, and the New York Giants at 2-6. Obviously, what a matchup this is between 2 of the best teams in the National Football League right now with how these 2 teams are playing, but one of the best rivalries, not just in football, in all of sports. And this game will have a lot of playoff implications, and that's why I think it's a tremendous opportunity for Philadelphia to show the nation, to show the world what they can bring to the table. That them making it to the Super Bowl last year and the success of that team can now trickle to the rest of this decade, and this organization can really go on a special run. I think that the Eagles here can continue to prove that they are the best team in football. I think that the Eagles have a great offensive line, a great defensive line. The secondary can improve, but the players are there. Pass rush is starting to get better. They have elite players on both sides of the ball. Jalen Hurts has been playing great football at that quarterback position. If the Eagles can get the run game on track, the wide receivers are starting to really show out. Obviously, A.J. Brown's done that in 6 consecutive games. How great was it to see DeVonta Smith really show out at FedEx Field? Dallas Goedert, one of the top tight ends, and I love this Eagles coaching staff. Can you imagine if Philadelphia can put it all together in one sole package? And if they do that, they are a really, really scary team because so far on the Eagles' schedule here, they've shown these flashes here and there of being able to represent the team in Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58. But offense, defense, special teams, they haven't combined together in one game to have that one dominant showing. You might look at that Dolphins win and say, well, that was it, Chase. No, because Jalen Hurts had the fumble and the interception, which led to 10 Dolphins points of their 17. So you look at how the Eagles have fared this year. They had to gut it out against the New England Patriots, 25-20, an impressive win against the Vikings, but they gave up that 27-7 lead to Minnesota. They go on the road. They run crazy against the Bucs, 25-11. They win in overtime against the Commanders, a hard-fought road win cross-country against the Rams, 20-14 loss against the Jets. They played awful in that game and should have won it despite turning it over 4 times. Their most impressive win to date, and one of the most impressive victories that any team has in the NFL this year, was that 31-17 victory over Miami. And then last week, 2 turnovers inside the 5, but going back to why I love the makeup of this team, and it has to do with the roster construction, the players, the talent, the coaching. What I love about the Eagles, how mentally tough they are and how they're so multiple. Like in that Washington game, a little bit of a shootout, and they were able to win. And they can win in a shootout in kind of a hyper-athletic offensive showdown, but if the game gets muddied up and a little bit grimy and it's a low-scoring defensive battle, the Eagles can win that type of game. If they need to run crazy, they can do that behind this great offensive line. So the multiplicity, if that's a word, of this Eagles team is why I think that they are the best, whereas other teams do have a lot of weaknesses. The Eagles right now, given how they've played in back-to-back weeks, Dolphins, Commanders, I think are playing their best football and are starting to fully round into form. You don't want to be like the San Francisco 49ers. Off to a 5-0 start, they look great, then they drop 3 straight. They seem to have peaked early, whereas the Eagles have kind of been establishing this momentum slowly but steadily, and I think that that's a good sign for this team as we approach the halfway point of the year. Speaking of this Eagles-Cowboys game, we're going live, another watch party on Eagles Now. We're going to do an hour pregame show. We're giving away an autographed Michael Vick jersey. We're going to auction off another item, surprise item, live play-by-play, audience interaction, and the best place to experience game day for Eagles fans worldwide outside of being at Lincoln Financial Field. Don't miss it. Subscribe, turn on those notifications, and join us. So we looked at how the Eagles have fared. How have the Cowboys fared? I think the Eagles are a more battle-tested team. I think they're a more mentally tough team. I think they have more impressive wins on the resume. The Cowboys, they only have 2 losses. Arizona 28-16 in week 3, and then 42-10 to the San Francisco 49ers. As Cowboy fans usually are, they're delusional, right? They think, oh, this year's our year. And I don't think it's their year, because I don't think this Cowboys team is strong in all phases of the game. I worry about that coaching staff a little bit. And you look at that schedule, I don't think that they've beat a really formidable opponent up to this point. This is such a Jekyll and Hyde team, and it comes down to winning the big game for the Dallas Cowboys, which for nearly 30 years, they haven't been able to do that. The potential is there, but lack of execution, bad coaching, choking in the big moment always cost them. And why I like the Eagles to win this game is when I stack up the numbers and I stack up the rosters between these 2 teams, I think the Eagles clearly have the roster edge here. And if I break it down position by position, quarterback, I'm going with how Jalen Hurts is playing over Dak Prescott. Running back, even though I think DeAndre Swift is a little bit more talented than Tony Pollard, he's kind of an up-and-down player, and the Eagles haven't been feeding him the rock as much. Wide receiver, I'm going with the Birds. A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, better than C.D. Lamb and Brandon Cooks. Tight end, yeah, it's Dallas Goedert, who continues to be one of the more underrated tight ends in the NFL. Offensive line, clearly siding with Philadelphia. Defensive line, the Cowboys do have Micah Parsons, but I like the Eagles' depth, and I like the collective unit a little bit more than the Cowboys. Linebacker, I'll give Dallas that. Cornerback, since Trayvon Diggs went down, you still have Stephon Gilmore, but I think that Darius Slay, James Bradbury, a better 1-2 cornerback punch than what the Cowboys have. Safety with Kevin Byard and Reed Blankenship, I'm going Philly there. And coaching, Nick Sirianni over Mike McCarthy. He's shown that to be the case over the last couple of years. So with that, I ask you this. Who you got? This will be the pinned comment for today's show, so make sure you go on down and get those predictions in. You going Birds, or are you going with the Dallas Cowboys? Let me know. My score prediction coming up a little bit later. Prize Picks, our sponsor for our Eagles-Cowboys preview. Easy and exciting daily fantasy. Head to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS for an up to $100 deposit match. Here are my picks that I'm liking right now. I haven't put my money down officially, but I'm liking these picks as of this very moment, middle of the week, going into this Cowboys tilt. Cowboys are susceptible, as we're about to talk about, to giving up large plays on the ground. DeAndre Swift hasn't broken out in a little while. Cam Jurgens had his practice window opened. He might be able to play. I like DeAndre Swift to pop off. More than 61.5 rushing yards, give me that. Eagles have struggled a little bit in the red zone. Jake Elliott is also one of the best kickers in the game. I like 1.5 more field goals made. And then Dak Prescott has oftentimes fared pretty well against the Eagles, and this Eagles team bottom third in passing yards allowed per game. And I think that Dak's going to be able to rack up passing yards. So I like more than 253.5. If you want to get your picks in or tail me, download the app. It is free. prizepicks.com/CLNS. Let's take a look at some team statistics for Dallas as well as Philadelphia and continue to compare these teams in our preview. The Cowboys, number 2 offense, scoring offense in the NFL at 28 points per game. They're putting up 338 yards per contest. That is 15th in the NFL. Yards per play, north of 5. That's about middle of the pack, checking in at 14. Their third down percentage, Dak Prescott, say what you want about him, has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks on money downs this year. Cowboys converting nearly 48% of their third down opportunities. A big key to the game, who can finish in the red zone? We've talked about how the Eagles have struggled converting red zone trips into touchdowns. The same can be said for the Cowboys as well. 29th in the NFL, under 41% on their red zone efficiency. As for the Cowboys defense, giving up just 17 points per game. That's number 4 in the NFL. They were number 1 before the Niners put up 42 points against them a few weeks ago. They're giving up the third least yards in the NFL at 287 per ball game. They're 9th in yards per play, 7th in third down percentage, so they fare pretty well as a defense because they can get after it with that defensive line. Red zone, though, middle of the pack once again, number 16 at just under 53. So that's how Dallas stacks up. As for how Philadelphia stacks up, right behind the Cowboys in points per game scored offensively at 28. They're putting up the third most yards per game, yards per play. Eagles still in the top 10. Third down percentage, number 1 in the National Football League. Big credit to Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. That 1-2 punch has been lethal through the air, but that red zone percentage continues to hold Philadelphia back a bit, 51%. That's 18th in the league. Defensively for the Birds, struggling a little bit as far as statistics go, but I think when it comes down to the eye test, they're a little bit better, giving up 21.5 points per game. That's 19th. 8th in yards per game given up. Yards per play at 16th. Third down percentage, 25th. So their third down percentage against the Cowboys, big key to this game. And then red zones. This Eagles team, not great in the red zone, especially as we saw against the Commanders. 65%, not ideal. From that, I want to shift gears to this talking point, the Dak Prescott argument. A lot of Cowboys fans have been chirping at me. They've been chirping on social media. They think that Dak Prescott owns the Eagles, especially in Philadelphia. That narrative is a little bit overblown when you look at Dak against Philadelphia in his career in total. In Philadelphia, when you take a look at some of the in-depth trends, like it's not like he's totally dominated this team. In 2016, these games in Philly, by the way, meaningless game, 8 passes thrown. In 2017, game didn't matter. 2018, he did win a game that did have implications. In 2019, Dak lost with the shoulder injury. In 2020, didn't play. In 2021, he played all backups. 2022, didn't play earlier in the year as the Eagles got that win over Cooper Rush. He does have an 8-3 overall record, though, which isn't bad at all. So a little bit overblown, but something to, of course, look out for there. My keys to the game for the Philadelphia Eagles to pull out a win. We talked briefly about that Cowboys defense. They are very good, but they can be had if you run against them. And that's why I think one of the keys to this game is Philadelphia's rushing offense against the Cowboys' rushing defense. In-depth numbers here, Cowboys rushing defense, 18th in the NFL, giving up 4.1 yards per rush, 108.8 rushing yards per game. That also 18th. And Philadelphia hasn't sniffed that over the last couple of weeks. So could this be the week that the Eagles' ground game finally gets on track, and then they're giving up a little less than a touchdown per game? That's 15th in the NFL. The strategical aspect of this talking point is this, that if the Eagles can run the football here, they can bully the Cowboys up front, they can break their will, they can take the Cowboys' offense out of their rhythm, and in not having to throw it all that much, they don't let Micah Parsons wreck the game. Speaking of Micah Parsons, point number 2 and key number 2, neutralize Micah Parsons. Very special player. Nick Sirianni even said he's one of the best players in the National Football League. He has the ability to wreck the game by himself. And if he's held in check for a majority of the game, like he was against the Chargers, he can make a couple of monster back-to-back plays to end the game in the Cowboys' favor. Through 7 games, certainly in the running to an NFL Defensive Player of the Year, he has 43 pressures, 6 sacks to go along with those 43 pressures, 9 quarterback hits, and 28 hurries. Primarily, he's playing less linebacker now, more defensive end. Going to be a big test for Jordan Mailata, who, by the way, is the highest graded offensive lineman in the National Football League, according to Pro Football Focus, as well as Lane Johnson, who has fared very well against Micah Parsons. Key number 3, got to pressure Dak Prescott. Last year, led the NFL in interceptions despite missing some time with that thumb injury. And when the pocket gets muddied for Dak, the feet start to get a little bit uneasy. His eyes start to go all over the place. He doesn't see the field as well. This year, he is completing 71% of his passes. He's thrown for 1,600 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 picks. So the interception number's down a little bit, but if you pressure Dak, you start to hit him. You also have to maybe have a quarterback spy at that linebacker spot to keep him from running, or at least be able to contain him in the pocket because he can still hurt you with his legs. That's really important. Getting home to the quarterback and finishing is going to be really important for Philadelphia's defensive line. And if they can get home with just 4 and let that back end kind of do their job without Dak Prescott having all day to kind of survey the field, that could be instrumental in this football game as well. I think that with A.J. Brown going off for 125-plus yards in 6 consecutive games, Dallas and their game planning all week has solely been focused on stopping A.J. Brown. And I think that teams at some point are going to start to hone in on A.J. Brown a little bit more. What he's done is historic. 6 straight games of 125-plus yards. Nobody has done that over the course of NFL history. I think teams are going to start to bracket him, double-team him, jam him at the line of scrimmage, throw extra attention his way because they want to see if Jalen Hurts can beat them if they take away A.J. Brown. And I guarantee you it's been a massive point of emphasis for Dallas's coaching staff and their defensive coaching staff. It's a good one, led by defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. And then lastly, if this game is close and it's coming down to the wire, I don't love Dak Prescott's ability to win a close game when the pressure cooker is on the road. I do like Jalen Hurts if the Eagles are in a close game or having to come back. Clutch Jalen. These numbers, pretty astounding here. When Hurts is leading this year, 63.5% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 8 picks, a rating of 67. It's pretty wild, right? He plays his best ball when tied or trailing. It's what the great quarterbacks do. It's what made Tom Brady so clutch. Clutch gene, ladies and gentlemen. Completion percentage at 72.7. He's thrown for more than 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns to 0 picks, and a rating that is far greater than it is when he is leading at 118.7. So with that, I ask you another question. Can you predict the score for me down in the comment section? Eagles, Cowboys, Sunday, as for my prediction. I think this is going to be a close game. And I think because these two teams know each other very well, I think that it's going to be lower scoring. And I think that the Eagles are going to be able to edge out the Cowboys and push that line at -3 and take the dub 26-23. I don't think they're going to dominate the Cowboys. I don't think they're going to pull away with it in dominant fashion. It seems as though when these two teams meet, these games are always very close. 26-3 my final score. Go Birds, F Dallas all day.